Mike Johnson may well be the most spineless figure ever to serve in the United States government, and it isn't particularly close. He has rendered the speakership functionally meaningless, not merely because his majority is razor-thin and largely ungovernable, but because he has chosen deliberately and repeatedly to operate as an extension of Donald Trump's will rather than as an independent constitutional officer. That abdication has taken many forms over the course of his tenure, but its through line has been consistent: the systematic surrender of congressional authority to the executive branch. His latest move, however, may be his most consequential and his most dangerous. As members of the House work to strip Donald Trump of his war powers, Johnson has moved to adjourn Congress, effectively using the machinery of legislative procedure to shield the president from legislative accountability. The message could not be clearer. Johnson will deploy every tool at his disposal to protect the man who is, in any meaningful sense, his actual boss. This matters enormously because Trump himself has made no effort to conceal his intentions. He has signaled openly that a single strike on Iran was never the endpoint. And with Johnson standing guard at the door of Congress, the question of who checks that ambition and how becomes increasingly urgent. We'll cover all of it, beginning with Trump's latest Truth Social post, before turning to Johnson, the House, and the Republicans, who are now...
On Truth Social, Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead. This is not only justice for the people of Iran, but for all great Americans, and those people from many countries throughout the world that have been killed or mutilated by Khamenei or his gang of bloodthirsty thugs. He was unable to avoid our intelligence and highly sophisticated tracking systems, and working closely with Israel, there was not a thing he or the other leaders that have been killed along with him could do. This is the single greatest chance for the Iranian people to take back their country. We are hearing that many of their IRGC military and other security and police forces no longer want to fight and are looking for immunity from us. As I said last night, now they can have immunity. Later, they only get death. Hopefully, the IRGC and police will peacefully merge with Iranian patriots and work together as a unit to bring back the country to the greatness it deserves. That process should soon be starting, in that not only the death of Khamenei, but the country has been, in the only one day, very much destroyed and even obliterated, a word, of course, Donald Trump has used in the past. The heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week or as long as necessary to achieve our objective of peace throughout the Middle East and indeed the world. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Donald Trump has no interest in peace. He has no interest in confronting authoritarian regimes. He has no interest in defending the civil liberties of people around the world. And he has demonstrated repeatedly and without apparent restraint that he doesn't much respect the civil liberties of Americans either, including those he has effectively had removed from the streets. So let's dispense with that framing entirely. What Trump is plainly pursuing is something far more straightforward: the continued expansion of his authoritarian project, consolidating power, and wielding that power to carry out whatever attacks on Americans he deems useful or necessary. He wants the bombing to continue. He wants the war effort to continue, whatever rhetorical shape he chooses to pour it into on any given day. And the people around him aren't even bothering to hide it. They are, in effect, telling us directly, signaling openly, that the just...
From voting in our sacred American elections, we don't want people that aren't citizens of our country voting. We don't want people that aren't studied, and we don't want people that can't love our country voting in our elections. So it's very simple. All voters must show this is the Save America Act. Now think of...
Very early in this administration, we saw a list, an actual enumerated list, of what would qualify someone as un-American. It included holding anti-capitalist ideologies, expressing sympathies deemed subversive, or protesting against the government or the police state. These were things Trump said he would pursue, or that would mark a person as standing outside the American mainstream. It should surprise no one, then, that Trump would eventually apply that same un-American label to anyone who opposes his war effort, framing dissent against military action as a national security threat. And that framing isn't incidental, it's infrastructural. It creates the predicate for Marco Rubio to revoke a visa here, cancel a passport there, and remember, they've already told us the passport is now effectively only valid for voting purposes, a right they're now signaling they'd like to curtail as well. This is a much broader operation than it appears on the surface, and it has far less to do with Iran than with the domestic consolidation of power Trump is using this moment to advance. That is precisely why Thomas Massie, alongside Representative Rawana and a coalition of Democrats and Republicans, is moving to stop it. Immediately after the bombing began, Massie wrote, "I am against this war. This is not America first. When Congress reconvenes, I will work with Rep. Rawana to force a congressional vote on the war with Iran. The Constitution requires a vote, and your representatives must go on record for or against this war. However, the War Powers Resolution faces two distinct threats. The first is internal defection. Democrats Gottheimer, Landsman, and Moskowitz have all signaled they would vote against it, as has John Fetterman in the Senate, and at least one additional House Democrat told Axios the same. But that may not even be the primary obstacle, because Mike Johnson has done something more blunt and more alarming. He has simply closed Congress, adjourned the body outright to prevent the measure from coming to a vote at all.
Thomas Massie, immediately after Donald Trump's bombing began, wrote, "I am opposed to this war. This is not America first. When Congress reconvenes, I will work with Rep. Ro Khanna to force a congressional vote on war with Iran. The Constitution requires a vote, and your representatives need to be on record as opposing or supporting this war." However, new war powers vote math may be getting away from House Dem leadership and Thomas Massie because Democrats, even though we can barely call them that, Gottheimer, Landsman, and Moskowitz have all said and indicated that they're opposed, of course, as well as John Fetterman in the Senate. Another House Dem told Axios they will be a no as well. But this isn't the biggest impediment to the War Powers Act because Mike Johnson has literally been shutting down Congress to stop it from passing.
Our Speaker, the Speaker of the House, Mr. Johnson, has done everything he can to prevent us from having that kind of a vote. He canceled votes on Friday. He canceled votes on Tuesday. He canceled votes this coming Friday. And I think that's all in an attempt to undermine the power of Congress, to make sure that Congress has that authority. We can't do that if we're not physically present. And so I think that he is absolutely complicit in this neutering of the United States Congress. And I'm hopeful that we have the chance to take that.
Mike Johnson is canceling votes and effectively shuttering the House of Representatives in its entirety because he wants Donald Trump to be able to continue his war effort for as long as possible. He wants Trump to keep consolidating military power, which has been a central objective of this administration from its very first days. Trump would have us believe that every institution of American government exists to serve him and his wealthy allies. Whether it's the Department of Justice shielding him and his associates, or the U.S. military functioning as a simple extension of his personal police state. As if ICE, already the fifth largest standing military force in the world, weren't enough. Trump needs American troops to follow whatever he posts on Truth Social so that he can complete the consolidation of power he's been working toward all along. That is the endgame. Trump wants the ability to deploy the American military at will. He wants to use ICE to intimidate voters at polling places. He wants to declare national security emergencies that justify executive powers Congress cannot check, because Mike Johnson will make sure Congress never gets the chance to say yes or no. This is a coordinated, sustained effort visible across the entire span of this administration to place total power in Donald Trump's hands, which is why Democrats need to be absolutely clear in how they respond, and right now, they aren't. Every Republican asked about Trump's war effort is giving the same non-answer. Well, I haven't really seen it. I'm not sure. They're performing ignorance. They're pretending to be outside a process they are actively enabling. But this isn't about whether Trump gets to declare war and then ask for permission afterward. That's Congress's constitutional role. The problem is that framing, while legally accurate, is politically insufficient. Democrats should not get lost in process. People are not outraged by this war primarily because it's illegal. They're outraged because it is unjustifiable, reckless, dangerous, and deeply unpopular. That has to be the message. Not the regime. Don't go there. That's a conversation for another statement another day. Right now, the message is simple. Donald Trump is taking this country to war, and he is going to put Americans in danger because he has already told us this is an expanding operation. He will send ground troops. He will take the children of working people from every corner of this country and ship them overseas to fight Netanyahu's war, to fight AIPAC's war. And that brings us to why Gottheimer, Moskowitz, and Landsman, the most vocally pro-Israel, and let's be direct about it, AIPAC-funded Democrats in the House are now lining up against the War Powers resolution. John Fetterman, who at this point seems to represent Israeli foreign policy more than the people of Pennsylvania, is demanding Trump be allowed to continue. Do we really think these positions are unrelated to each other? Because they are not. These are not Democrats in any meaningful sense. They deserve primary challenges, and they should be ashamed because they are handing Donald Trump exactly the kind of consolidated power this war is designed to deliver. That is why Mike Johnson is trying to paralyze Congress. It is part of a larger plan to transfer every meaningful lever of power in this government, either to oligarchs who will control our media or to Donald Trump, who will control everything else. That is the goal. That is the only story. And frankly, that is the only message Democrats should be delivering right now. Not procedural objections. Yes, Trump is breaking the law. Yes, he is violating the Constitution, as he does constantly. But I promise you, what will actually move people is hearing someone say, we have to stop endless wars. Not Trump didn't ask our permission first. Because the second framing makes it sound like permission is all you care about, which for a lot of centrist corporate Democrats who are quietly comfortable with perpetual war is unfortunately the truth. But it shouldn't sound that way, and it doesn't have to. One Democrat who has gotten this right consistently and without hedging is Representative Jason Crow. I spoke with him in a video we recorded earlier around the State of the Union, and he told Democrats then exactly what needs to be said now. Stop talking about process. Focus on the fact that Donald Trump, as he does with every initiative of this administration, is going to con working people, get them killed, and send them wherever he wants so they can die for him and his oligarch friends. Here's what Jason Crow
What's
had
your
to
take
say.
on what the president
He
is
said it
trying
to Rachel
achieve
Maddow
with this war?
and it's a clip we simply have to watch.
Well, here we go again. As you just pointed out, I learned about this when I woke up and opened up my phone and looked at Twitter, right, which has its own set of problems, the fact that Congress wasn't engaged and involved. But listen, my statement, I think, captures the sentiment of tens of millions of working class Americans who have seen 20 years of endless conflict, trillions of dollars spent, thousands of American lives. And you know who wins? The defense companies win, the oil companies win, the elites and the billionaires win, and the working class folks that I grew up with, that I went to war with, we're left holding the bag. And this is the same thing, right, over and over again. And how magnanimous of Donald Trump to get up there last night and say, you know, tough stuff happens in war, and maybe there are going to be some Americans that will die, but that's a cost I'm willing to take. Really? That's a cost he's willing to take? Because last time I checked, it wasn't him or his kids or his donors' kids or the other elites in the White House that are having to jump into planes or pick up rifles or are sitting here in military bases around the Middle East being bombed right now. They shift that
That is the message Democrats need to be echoing everywhere, without qualification, without hedging, without half measures. No buts, no lukewarm statements, no well, I'm pleased with how this turned out, or Mr. Trump, actually, this isn't really none of that. Trump doesn't care. He is not listening to careful procedural objections. This is about consolidating his power. This is about expanding an authoritarian project that has been underway since day one. That is the only thing worth focusing on right now. That's certainly the perspective we'll continue to share and discuss on this show, even as events are still unfolding, as they very much are. We'll keep covering it, keep calling it what it is. If you'd like to support what we're doing here, you can hit the subscribe button and leave a like on this video. And if you made it all the way to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep fighting, everyone. Don't let them silence you. Until next time,